Hi, it's Pastor Steve, continuing our cover-to-cover journey, and we are now the latter part of the book of Job, and today is January 26, and we're looking at Job chapter 26 through the end of chapter 29. Well, Bildad has just spoken a very brief, actually, speech, and now Job gives his final speech, and it's quite lengthy, and in it we see many of the things that make Job special, why God had affection on this man, but we also see where he is kind of off base. And we, as people exercising wisdom, have to look at this passage with discerning eyes, and we pick up some wonderful things, and we pick up some things that might raise some questions. First of all, I love the way he responds to Bildad. In chapter 26, he says this to Bildad: "How have you helped the powerless? How have you helped the weak?" Well, that's a great question. But I actually think that's a great question for all of us, to hear Job say, "How have I helped the powerless? How have I helped the weak?" He goes on in this description, but that is a great measurement for you and I to say, are we indeed lending a hand in these circumstances? I was having a long conversation with my daughter yesterday about ethics, and one of the things that I pointed out, there is a reason why mommy and daddy have had boarders living in our house who were previously homeless, or why we support 5 children through World Vision in Africa. It's us trying to honor that principle. Now, does that make me saved? No, it doesn't. But it's a good and right thing to do. My wife loves Downton Abbey. It's this British show. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. But she said she likes it because it's about decent people acting decently. And, you know, there are flaws of these folks. You can see it. But by and large, the characters are good people. And what we see in Job is he is genuinely a good person. Where did he go wrong in this section? Well, I would say that when he starts defending his innocence. Now, from his perspective, he lived a good life, and God seemed to affirm this good life that he was living. But I want to be very, very careful when I am about all defending my innocence. And what's going to happen later on is that God is going to step into this conversation and point out that was not a thing for Job to do. So I see a hint of God's response later. But here's where we have some jewels and some beautiful things. Here's one. God alone understands wisdom. Today, when I was giving a devotional at the Christian school, I gave them Psalm 119, verse 105, that God's word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And that in this world there are so many verses and, ideas that are compounding us, leading us one way or another. But what I see is that God's word is the one anchor that I can hold on to, that I should treasure. And I agree with Job 100% that God is that source of wisdom. But I would also say, if I could have a conversation with Job, he speaks in the past tense of God's presence. And I would want to say, Job, in the midst of these sores, in the midst of the death and the grieving and the poverty, God's still with you. He hasn't left you. I'd want to say that to him because I've experienced it myself. The last thing I want to point out is I love his poetic way of even describing his care for those around him. He said, I was a father to the poor. What I love what Job does is he paints a picture as he sees righteousness. And notice, his view of righteousness is not just avoiding certain sins. No, his definition of righteousness is kindness to those who need kindness. So if you're trying to pursue a godly life, it's not just about keeping your nose clean. It's about where are you exemplifying the mercy and compassion of God. And to do that, to the people you interact with. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.